So I'm going to tell you or show you how to make a tethering muse setup for a micro-raptor, whether it's a Merlin, an Aplomados, a musket, a Sparrowhawk, American kestrel, something that works really well. So that's not how it's going to be. That's going to be, imagine that as a tabletop. Doesn't need to be this big. I've got this, I'm using it, but I'll show you later what measurements are important. We've got a framework of treated timber. We've got 18mm, I think, a base of treated timber. This delaminates when it's wet. And the whole point of this is we're going to stop it from getting wet with what we're doing now. But this is going to be the tabletop. The perching system is going to be attached as part of that. And this is going to be, imagine a tabletop around waist height, off the frost layer for the bird. Easy to work on with you because your bird's at waist height and you're not towering down over that little tiny bird either. It's up at your kind of level. It feels a lot more comfortable. So first we're going to do, we're going to cut a hole in here. Size doesn't matter. The reason we're cutting a hole is we're going to line this with damp-proof membrane, plastic sheet basically, and we're going to funnel the sheet down through that hole so this can drain, because this is going in a place where we can drain it through. We can hose a fine pea gravel through, keep it really clean if we need to. The water's not going to go on here. It's going to go through plug hole, down keyhole or whatever. Now, if that's in your shed, if you like, you can't have water running onto your shed floor, obviously. So you need to look at what you're going to use as a substrate in here. What I would use, and what I've always used in the past, is rubber matting cut to size with newspaper underneath the perch that you change every day. It keeps it absolutely spotless. A bird first put on there, you'll see the whole setup soon, but the bird first put on there will actually jump off, scrub around in the newspaper, kind of make a mess. But within a couple of days, the bird knows that's its nighttime quarters, and it generally keeps still and just poos onto newspaper, which is so good because you're taking away all of the excrement rather than putting it on sand and raking it. I can't stand that. People use it all their lives, no problem. The thing is with a sand substrate, if you feed your birds on it, it's dire. If you grease your, oil your anklets, it's dire. You've got, you're sandpapering your birds' legs. If you rake sand, you only get out a little bit of the poo and muck. It becomes an absolute haven for dust, which is bad for you, let alone your bird, and also, of course, bacteria. Now, if the sand is always kept bone dry, bacteria doesn't thrive as well as it would in damp sand. But once you use newspaper to catch the night mutes of any bird anywhere, and you see the phenomenal amount of liquid waste they produce, and then think about a sand substrate that just gets raked over, it's phenomenal how much muck goes into that sand you never retrieve. Pea gravel, you can hose it through. So we're going to crack on and I'll show you a bit more as we go along. Okay, so damp-proof membrane used to be 60 quid for the roll, the biggest roll that lasts you a lifetime from Wickes's. We made a simple framework out of treated timber. Remember, you don't need to do this if you're going to use newspaper and matting, but I want to fill this with fine pea gravel so I can, if I want to, hose it through. So the hole we roughly cut, we're going to make a hole in there. We can hose through the gravel. The water won't wet the wood, it'll go down there. Make sure you push that down quite well so the water drips through if you're doing an outside sort of muse, not in your shed. And the water can't feed back under between the plastic and the wood rail. I'm going to fill that with a bit of coarse aquarium filter sponge, but you could just put a piece of metal mesh over there or any kind of mesh that will keep your pea gravel in and let the water drain through. And then we want to fill this up quite high, cover all of this with the pea gravel there. Perch is going to be central. That's the area your bird's going to jump off his perch onto, but we'll see more of that. But for now, literally a pair of scissors, cheap staple gun, some way of making a hole. I've just used a hole cutter. You could use a jigsaw like me, damp-proof membrane, and you'll see it as it takes shape. And the boys, let's sneak up on them because you know damn well Chris and Mr. Stiff will be doing absolutely frickle. Let's have a look. this is what they do. They've done about 5% productivity today, and the rest of it, all they've done, did you see how they sensed us watching them and they moved into action? So these guys are doing some work in the mews here. So using a bit of upcycling, the lads have created what we were getting at. So it's off the ground, off the frost layer, away from any rats that might run around and eat your micros, although a rat can get everywhere, of course. So tidied up with some astroturf that we've got, front and back. I was going to put some coarse aquarium foam in there before splitting a V to use that as drainage, but I'm going to weigh that down with gravel and put a bit of mesh over, because I could find that and I couldn't find what I was looking for. This is going to be gravel with a nice soft pea gravel, which isn't always easy to find. Perch there, and you'll see that in a minute. So you can use this for all your falcons. This is having a little perch like this that works for micros like Merlins and kestrels, falcons, or muskets and spars. But it's going to be about there. I'll show you that at the end. You could also have a nice shelf perch for your falcons. Again, we're using this because I'm going to fill it with gravel so I can hose it through. But normally I just have a tabletop, and under the perches I just put newspaper, so bear that in mind. You could do away with this whole idea and just use it as a tabletop. But think about where your tethering point is, because on a half bow the point's here. You haven't got so far for your leash. On a shelf perch your tethering point's underneath, so the birds can't come as far forward. You've got to make sure front to back is wide enough for your particular bird, so the bird can't bait and hang over the edge, which it could possibly do. Fine if it can stand on here, you don't want its tethering kit to let it go over the edge. So bear in mind the width. For an average size falcon, I'd have this wider than what I'm using it, but for a micro, it'll be just fine. Why is it this long? Well, equally, you don't want your bird to go off the edge, but the real reason is because I already had this thing made up for something totally different. So I'll show you the finished product when it's done. We'll just literally upcycle this. This is an earth floor, if you like, so we can hose it through it if we need to. It's just going to drip on the floor and soak away. Again, inside a shed. Forget this whole gravelling area. Just do it like a tabletop and put newspaper underneath that you can remove daily. Goodness me, that is the best way to keep your birds crystal clean. You're getting all that bacteria and filth away. Equally with the shelf perch, definitely put, even if it's clear, put a sheet of plastic over the whole area. Stops the wings getting caught on any edges, but it also means food and things off the shelf perch, if you feed them or anything like that, can be easily cleaned off and scrubbed away. But you get the idea of what we're trying to achieve. Now, one good thing, if you've got a window or it's inside something meshed, should the bird get away and tethered, it's double secure, isn't it? You still got to get in there, but it's double secure, and you can see that it has, for some reason, whatever, chewed its jesses off or something. So you get the idea. You're going to have a drainage point. This is all going to be gravelled up level. Really, really, really important, whether you use a shelf perch for your falcons or a half bow. No edges along the back, no edges. They will, without doubt, the shelf perch, get their leash caught down the corner to the slightest gap. Equally here, tiny little gap. Thin leash could snag under there if this wasn't here. They will find a way to snag themselves and catch themselves up tethered birds, so always be aware. I like this system because generally it's never tangled for me. They can go round and so on, but they can also go around real quick and tangle up. Birds tethered always have the ability to tangle up. So for now I'm going to leave this, but plastic sheet behind is so much more easy to clean and much smoother on any feathers for sure. But you get the idea. Really importantly, remember, I'm doing this to try something different where I can hose gravel through like a muse, high up, hose it through. When I kept all my team at home, I'd have similar setups to this. They were wider because it included different size falcons and bigger falcons. They had shelf perches. They were 4-foot long pods with dividers, all smooth plastic. Imagine you've got a wall there, smooth plastic here, and a shelf perch there. 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, about 3.5 foot front to back. You don't need this fancy frame. You're literally just making a tabletop, possibly a front edge. Once those falcons were used to that, which is a day or two, used to going in there at night, and they were going out in their routine, all I'd have underneath on a varnished waterproof tabletop, whatever you want to use, plywood, whatever, is newspaper under the perch. Every morning I'd clear that paper away and I've totally cleaned out my birds. There's just no muck and bacteria. Now the first day or two you might find your bird baits onto the newspaper, gets its tail in a load of poo. After that, you never had a problem. Once they're settled in, they just chilled out on their perches. But you can see what we're doing. I'll show you the finished article soon. And then of course, we've got to tidy up in here, really, aren't we? And one more thing. Remember, I'm just recycling. I'm using what I had. Having this sort of 3x2 frame here, there's every chance the bird will snuggle up to the wall and poo on there. I want it to poo on here. What I have done to try and negate that, that's slightly the highest part of the perch. They do tend to go to the highest point, but we'll see. You know that. If you hold your glove like that, the bird's up here. If you hold your glove like that, it's on your shoulder. So I've set that slightly higher to try and encourage the bird to sit on the end here. Pooing on the gravel that'll be there, not on this, which will need cleaning off. But again, we're recycling, we're making stuff out of stuff we've already got. When it comes to upcycling and recycling, you can imagine the other way around, but front, top, 40-48 pallets. You can imagine they could be pretty handy with a bit of imagination as well. It's getting a bit dark to show you now, but pretty much the finished article. So I've used a piece of clear perspex, nothing there now for the feathers to catch on, nice and smooth, disinfectant wipe downable. Of course it doesn't really stand out and look horrible. Half-by perch in miniature, use these on the eagles, they work great. One thing to mention, if I haven't already, do not use proper astroturf, the good coarse stuff that has a purpose, and we always recommend for perches for basically getting rid of bumblefoot, because the way it works, it prevents pressure sores under those feet. But for something like this, the leash will just wrap round and snag. It's not suitable for something so small and such lightweight birds. So still a bristly astroturf, or even better, wrap a leather cord round, or maybe a nylon cord, something like that, and then the ring will slide and work even better. It's not living on here, is it? It's spending maybe half its time on here, half its time out on another kind of perch that can have a completely different perching surface. It's all about different pressure points into those feet, so they don't get pressure sores, stroke bumblefoot. I'm going to leave that there because I'll tell you why. It's a little soft landing. You want gravel that's nothing like this. You want 6, 8 to 10 mil pea gravel. You want every piece to be rounded. I should see some really nice ones. If all the gravel is proper 6, 8, 10 mil, that kind of size pea gravel, when the bird baits onto it, it's like a ball pit. Every piece is round. This flinty stuff, it's a harsher landing. I wouldn't want a new bird baiting onto this, violently baiting when it doesn't understand tethering systems. It would be fine for this whaleman bird, but I'm still having a soft pad. The reason I've used this is, in Northamptonshire, you just cannot get, nowadays, any proper pea gravel. It's impossible to find anywhere. A couple of my big breeder friends buy it in huge bulk, perfect gravel for their falcon nest ledges. And they would give me some, but I felt a bit cheeky saying, you know, can I have 4 bags of your best gravel? But that's an option. But really shop around. You really should be, when you're using like this. That's not even good enough. Using lovely pea gravel, everything rounded. Honestly, it just moves in a different way. This, if you like, packed together, because it's 10 mil, but it's all different sizes, all different shapes. So try and get yourself proper rounded gravel. And that's if you're using this setup where we're draining it through. Obviously, if not, it's a tabletop I would have a rubber matting and a piece of newspaper under the perch personally, but that's pretty good. And that means I can come in and just hose through as I hose down the aviaries that have got their gravel bases to keep them nice and clean. Hope it makes sense. I'll just end up with a little last minute video with a bird on top. And there it is. You get the idea. Little water bowl, it's knocked off. I've never put bowls of water on my birds tethered because they're out all day. They used to be out weathering when I kept them at home. So in the night mews they never had water. Potentially there are problems involved, but you could put a little water, oh my finger's too big, a little water on the side there. And that is conforming because it is legal requirement that all animals can have access to fresh water at all times. You decide, but you get the idea. A brilliant little perching way. Works great for eagles, and these little half bows like this work great for micros. And have you noticed it's sitting on the end because it's slightly the highest point, so that job worked out a treat. And if he should get free, he's still visibly, we can see that he's free before we enter. But yeah, hope that makes sense to you guys.